Okay, I am recording. Okay. Okay. So, what I can tell you though, I can also read the back of the book because that's also pretty helpful. Also, I didn't read this the first time around. So it says most people aren't very comfortable in the woods, but the woods the woods of Bury Swamp fit Maybird like a fuzzy mitten. Also, this book is like middle school. I read this in middle school, so that's why it seems so childlike. But it's a good ass book, man. Anyway. Sorry about that. Most people are very comfortable in the woods, but the woods of Bury Swamp fit Maybird like a fuzzy mitten. There she is, safe from school on the taunts and teases of her kids who don't understand her. Hidden in the trees, May is a warrior princess, and her cat, Somber Kitty, is her brave guardian. Then May falls into the lake. When she crawls out, she finds herself in a world that most certainly does not feel like a fuzzy mitten. In fact, it is a place few living people have ever seen. Here, towns glow blue beneath zipping stars, and the people walk through walls. Here, the Book of the Dead holds the answers to everything in the universe. And here, I'm just worried that the laptop doesn't hear me. And where was I? Oh yeah. And here, if May is discovered, the horrifyingly evil Bo Cleeville will turn her into nothing. Maybird must get out, and fast. So, I love the book. It's nice. Yeah. Right, let me just position myself now. I'll read until 10:30. I think that's when I'll stop. Now I gotta make sure that you guys can hear me. If you have any, if I seem laggy, please tell me. People usually do. And then you can also comment on like what you think while I'm reading, and I'll also probably respond to that too, if you want. Okay, is this a good place to? Yes, it is a good place to put it. Okay. All right. So, in the morning I finished the prologue, chapter 1, and I think chapter 2. Yeah. Oh yeah, chapter 2, she found a letter, because where she lives, it's, no one really lives in that town anymore. So it's really empty, and it's basically a deserted town. And so she goes wandering off because she loves the woods, and then she finds a letter, and it's a letter from like 50 years ago or something like that, or a very long time ago. And it is actually addressed to her, and it says that people need her, and yeah, it's very, very strange. Alright, so, with that being said, I will stop babbling, and I will start maybe reading, kind of reading. Yeah, I'll read. Wow, again, it took me 5 minutes to get to the reading part. Jesus. try to get my thing close to me so I know it's detecting me. I think it is. Alright, chapter 3. And also, I will get a lot really mad whenever I can't pronounce things correctly. Like, super frustrated, so please bear with me. I cuss a lot too, so bear with me. Chapter 3. Chapter 3. Beyond the Endless Brewers. Yeah. Okay. Yes, I know. Yeah. Hold on. Just 1 second. I just want to make sure. I'm pretty sure I'm saying it right. It's just feels like I'm not reading it right. Or maybe I'm not. Whatever, right? Briars? Oh, so Briars. Not Brewers. That's why it's sounding so weird. Briars. I don't know. I like Brewers better, but I'll go with Briars because it's easier. Hold on just 1 second. Oh no, you can continue typing. I just need to do something. Usually when I see someone typing, I kind of wait for them to, send their message. So no worries there. I just don't want to miss anything. Like any comments or anything like that. I know, I'm sorry, I haven't even started reading. Yes it is. He is a big Game Grumps fan and Danny Sexbang fan, so nice. Alright, so chapter 3, Beyond the Endless Briars. It's fine. You have to know, man. Late the next morning, May put on her favorite black tank top and black denim overalls and walked out onto the front porch. She sank into the rocket. She sank into the rock. Okay, let me just. Okay, there we go. She sank into the rocker, balancing a bowl of oatmeal and a glass of orange juice in her hands. Sombraki appeared just behind her, slipping his way through the crack in the screen door and perching by her feet. She yawned, her mouth gaping like a bat cave. Last night, her mom had gotten her out of bed to watch a meteor shower. Jesus. Okay. See, like this meteor chowder, yeah. Nice. Also, you can make fun of how I pronounce things, because sometimes, I don't know why, I have a weird accent. Like, sometimes when I'm reading too fast, and it just happens, it sounds delicious. I could go for some meteor chowder myself. And I will get a weird accent for whatever reason, so bear with me. I know it's weird. It just happens. So it's like, It might hurt your teeth, but you need to get those minerals. Those alien minerals. Okay. Yeah, I am right. I know. I'm always right. The heck? Okay. I'm actually gonna start reading now. Oh, Jesus, it's 10 minutes. God, I've been recording 10 minutes, and how far have I gotten? Like, probably five sentences. Okay. She yawned, her mouth gaping like a bat cave. Last night, her mom had gotten her out of bed to watch a meteor shower. They'd laid on a sleeping bag on the back porch and competed over how many racing, fiery balls they could each point out. Things had started nicely enough, but soon May had started trying to steal her mom's meteors and vice versa. After that, they'd start poking at each other to cause distractions. You care more about winning than about me, May had shouted, laughing. Mrs. Bird laughed too. That's not true. I care more about you than all the meteors, even more than most of the smaller comets. Comets. Haha. May had rolled her eyes. They'd stayed up until long past midnight. But even though May was tired this morning, she wasn't sleepy. It was the kind of day where the world seemed full of promise. The dragonflies were humming, the sun beating on the porch made the wood smell woodsy, and it felt it felt like it was a day that meant something. May thrust her hand in. May thrust her hand into her pocket and felt the map. She wanted to think. Oh, okay. The map was in the letter too. Let me. Well, actually, no. You can probably. There's a letter addressed to her, and let me just read it out real fast, and then. The lady said the. Yeah, I will do this a lot, just in case you're not caught up yet. I will do this a lot because I care about my listeners. So the letter that she found, in the abandoned post office, underneath a bunch of rubble, it was, I don't know the time era of this book, but I'm pretty sure it's 2000s, just because. It was from probably 50, 60 years ago. And it was in 1951, something like that, 1950s, that this letter was addressed. And it was to her, to May Bird. And it says, Dear Miss Bird, the lady of North Farm has asked us to send you this map to Bury Swamp Lake, just in case. She thought you might be having trouble finding it on your own, and she is expecting you to be prompt. We are very sorry for the danger you will endure, but we eagerly await your arrival, should you survive it, as we are in great need of your help. The lady joins me in sending you good luck and best wishes. Sincerely, Miss H. Kari Kagaki, TEA Travel. Alright, so that was the letter she sent. And if you can see, I also post pictures of like what the book looks like, and then I posted like a picture of a map, and that's the map that she'll be referencing to, I think, a lot in this book. So if you want to pay attention to that, that's cool. Anyways, May thrust her hand into her pocket and felt the map. She wanted to think what had jumped into her pocket on its own, but she knew. Sorry, there will be times too where, Jesus Christ, I will read something and I will not have paid attention to anything I just read. So I am sorry. She wanted to think it had jumped into her pocket on its own, but she knew that wasn't quite true. She drank and ate quickly. If it was a day that meant something, she wanted to find out what that something was. In the breeze, Summer Kitty stretched his body long and thin as a rubber band, and then leaped up and onto her lap. He licked her chin, thumping his paw down on her chest to hold her in place. Yuck! May scrunched up her face. She stood up and brushed him off with the slightest move of her wrist. Though he struggled to stay on, he clung to the waistband of her short overalls, dangling like a set of keys on the school custodian. Also, there's a lot of meowing sounds, but I will not guarantee you I will sound like a cat. Just to let you know. Mew, meow, Mary. Come on, Kitty, off. Summer Kitty let go, bounced back onto his rubbery hind legs, and watched her walk to the edge of the deck, then down into the grass of the front yard. He jumped down behind her and lifted his paws gingerly. Already the sun had scorched the grass so that it was brown and dry. Mom, I'm going into the woods, May called in through the screen door. Also, sorry if I'm not using my loud voice. I recently moved and my room is now like right next to my parents, so I'm trying not to be too loud. I know I'm not loud, but you know, there are times where if the book says she called out or like she shouted, I would have shouted in my, well, not shouted, but loudly read. Yeah, but if I'm alone, and there's like no one to really worry about, then, I'll go probably as loud as I can go. But yeah, just to make it as authentic as possible. I don't want it to be bland reading, which it's not bland reading. At least I don't think I read blandly. I try to keep it all nice and, whatever. Cool. I'm glad to hear. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Mom, I'm going into the woods. What? Nice. Thank you. Sorry, now I'm getting distracted by the fact that I'm like, how much do I want to read today? Maybe I'll read till chapter 6? Maybe? I'm not sure. Alright. Mom, I'm going into the woods, May called in through the screen door. Don't go too far. Ugh. What the heck was that? Don't go too far, baby, her mother's voice called back. May pulled out the map, looked at it once more, and tucked it in her pocket. Her bike was lying there on the grass in front of the stairs. She picked up the tasseled handlebars and set the bike to moving, straddling it and standing on the pedals. A spin wheel she'd stuck into the rim at the back of her seat spun. Not a spin wheel, a pinwheel. A pinwheel she'd stuck into the rim of the back of her seat spun and glinted in the July sun. Sorry, I'm just hearing people outside and I'm just like, oh. Also, the heck is in my throat. Can you hear me? Okay, cool. Sorry, I'm using Discord on my phone and I saw the voice connection was not that great, so I'm like, oh no. Alright. A pinwheel she'd stuck into the rim of the back of her seat spun and glinted in the July sun. She bumped along the grass to the edge of the woods, where a dirt trail zigzagged its way into the trees. May was flying, the leaves tickling her bare arms on either side as she flashed and bumped and jostled back past the trees. Somber Kitty raced behind her, stopped only to clean his paws occasionally or bite a gnat out of his fuzzy coat before racing to catch up. When May skittled to a halt right in front of the fallen tree that marked where the bike track ended, he skidded too, leaping at the last minute to avoid a collision, and wobbling through the air to land on his feet on the other side. May slid off her bike and as she laid it down and stepped over the tree, slapping on Jesus. What the heck is in my throat? What is it? Where was I? Where was I? I was... Oh yeah. She slid off her bike and as she laid it down and stepped over the tree, slapping at the mosquitoes on her legs. The mosquitoes, she'd always assumed, got their water from the blood of the squirrels that got their water in Hogwallow. Hogwallow's the next town over. Two Bob Whites were introducing themselves to each other somewhere in the shade of the tree. Bob White? Asked one, its chirping sound almost human, the way Bob White chirps did. Jesus, I don't know what is in my fucking throat. Okay. Bob White? Asked one, its chirp sounding almost human, the way Bob White chirps did. Bob White, the other replied politely. May took a deep breath and started walking. An hour or so later she stopped, parted her bangs like curtains so that the breeze could blow on her forehead, and surveyed the area around her. This part of the woods was full of large old trees, oaks and maples and sumacs that stood as a mannerly distance apart from one another. May knew that if she walked forward and to the left, she'd meet a sloping hill where the trees grew smaller and closer together. She knew if she walked ahead and turned right, she'd run into a dried creek bed and a collection of giant flat boulders that had served in the past as ships, forts, and stages for Somber Kitty's dance routines. Also, it is canon in the book that her cat, Somber Kitty, is a good dancer, since he was a kitten. That whenever she references her cat's dance, or her cat dancing, I guess he's legit dancing. Immediately to the right, and just through a little rise of pines where the endless briar were. Immediately to the right, and just through a little rise of pines were the endless briars. May had tried many times to find her way through the prickly plants, always winding up stranded and itchy a few feet in, and gloomily plucking her way back out again. She pulled out the map. There was no way she could go around them and get home by dark. May shrugged. She walked to the edge where the thick of it began. A few a few smaller plants catching against the fabric of her sneakers. Nasty prickers, she said, high-stepping. Meow. May looked over her shoulder. You should go home, Kitty. Kitty was standing a few feet behind her, staring at her curiously. He looked over his shoulder, then back to her as if to say, Are you kidding? Things are just getting good. She watched him skillfully picking his way through the same small plants she just had. May rolled her eyes and stepped farther into the briars, feeling the sting of them on her legs and her bare ankles. Slowly, she made her way, treading on fallen logs and scattered rocks, to stay as far above the ground as possible. Within 10 or 15 minutes, she had made it so far into the patch that she couldn't see where the briars ended in any direction. Somber Kitty shot out in front of her, leaping from log to log, darting ahead, ducking under low branches playfully. They backtracked several times, running into impossible walls of plants and turning back to find an easier way. It seemed to take forever. 15 minutes later, the briars still stretched as far as May could see in every direction. Another 15, and it was the same. And the knot in her ribs from yesterday started gathering again. She wondered if maybe just crossing the briars was dangerous. What if she couldn't make her way out? Somber Kitty, finding it all terribly easy and starting to get bored, now turned back to watch her struggle through the dense patch she'd run into yet. Kitty, maybe we should turn around. May peered up at the sky. The sun was getting lower. She'd started too late. Hold on. Where was I? The sun was getting lower. She'd started too late. Somber Kitty, tilting his big ears downward in sympathy, turned and started walking back toward her. Wait! May stuck a fingernail into her mouth and nibbled on it. There was a small, clear patch a few feet away. If she leaped just right, she could make it. She bent her knees, jumped, and landed hard on both feet. She looked behind her. It didn't make much sense to turn back now. A few minutes later, the briars began to spread themselves out, getting farther and farther apart, until May hardly had to slow down at all to pick the odd one off her sneaker. The ground, she noticed, began to change almost immediately. Instead of the hard, dry dirt back near her house, the ground here was softer, a tiny bit mushy, and almost wet. Another thing, where she lives, it's pretty dry. Like the town where she kind of lives in. They say like every like lake and streak is like dried up, so that's why it's so dry. But as you can see, this place is not so dry. So what the heck's going on, man? I don't know. We're just gonna have to keep reading to find out, or you guys keep on listening to find out, because I've already read this book. Oh, just to tell you, this is a 3-book series. So it's going to be a long journey. Probably going to take most of the winter break. It might take I want to say maybe 4 weeks, depending on just when I get to read, stuff like that. So, nice. Yeah, so it's good though. It's good. This book has 300 pages, and then the other book might have 250, and the other one might have 300 as well. So, but it's a really good series. So, I enjoy it every last bit. I think I've read this book, like, the series, like, I think 2 full times, maybe even 3. This might be my 3rd or 4th time reading it again, but my god, I love it. Anyway, where did I leave off? Yeah, the ground, she noticed, began to change almost immediately. Instead of the hard, dry dirt back near her house, the ground here was softer, a tiny bit mushy, almost wet. The knot tightened. Looking back to the wall of stickers she'd come across, she'd felt so far from home. In fact, May felt too far. Somber Kitty trotted on ahead, glancing over his shoulder, occasionally to encourage May to catch up. He crested the top of the hill and disappeared. The next second, May heard a strange growl up ahead. Kitty? May crested the rise in a rush, ready to defend her cat, and at the same time, she realized 2 things. First, that the growl was coming from Somber Kitty, and second, that they had reached the lake. Another thing, in the prologue, it was saying how people would disappear when they went to this lake, this, like, secluded lake. They would just disappear or vanish, never to be seen again. It's a ghost, and the ghost is her. No, I will deny that theory because it's not true. She is alive, goddammit. She's not a ghost. I'm being super serious with you, Chandler. It's not a ghost. There we go. Alright. Yeah, I really like the diffusers. Those are cool. I have mine securely on. I don't know, babe. I mean, you shave your head, so all that bullshit just reflects right off your head anyway, so you don't need it. Damn. Extra protection. Okay. Can never be too safe. I mean, true. Okay. I'm like, I want to drink this hot chocolate, but also, like, it looks like it's still hot. So I'm going to leave it there for a little bit. Okay. All right. Back to our regularly scheduled program. Oh, God. Where was I? I wasn't in this one. Okay. What was it? What was it? Oh, okay. May crested the rise in a rush, ready to defend her cat, and at the same time she realized 2 things. First, that growl was coming from Somber Kitty, and second, that they had reached the lake. Kitty's tail stood pencil straight. His pointy ears trembled, and the growl seemed to come from deep in his throat. What is it? She followed his gaze to the small, black body of water in front of them, disbelieving. It was only a small lake, which took the form of a misshapen O in the clearing, but it was but it was bigger than anything May would have dreamed she would find. Nothing, not even a lily pad or a spare leaf, floated a small ghost lake. I mean, I'm not going to spoil anything. I will neither confirm nor deny that. I will deny, well, no, not deny. I will reject your theory on that she's a ghost child. She's not a ghost child. That's ridiculous. um. Oh yeah, but it was bigger than anything May would have dreamed she would find. Nothing, not even a lily pad or a spare leaf, floated on the dark, glossy surface of the water. It rippled just slightly at the edges, where it touched the rocks of the shore, and mirrored the thin, white clouds circling overhead. This lake was full and deep and thriving. It was as if May was standing in the rainforest instead of the dry hills of Brewery Swamp. Or is it Briery Swamp? I'm gonna say Brewery Swamp because I like that better. It couldn't be as deep as it looked. May took a step forward and tripped, righting herself again. She turned around to see what had tangled her foot. Just behind her, lying on its side, was a bear trap with a jagged slit down the middle and rusted metal hinges. It was connected to a little chain and a rusted metal post, flying flat onto the ground. May wondered how old the trap was and who had left it there. Oh, in the prologue, get this Venom. Fucking in the prologue, it says of people that have disappeared when visiting this lake, and it says that fur trappers actually vanished, so that was probably their trap. Or maybe I'm just theorizing too much, but you know, yeah. Okay. What is this? Sorry, I'm blanking out. Let me see if my hot chocolate is good. Oh, yeah. It's good. It's good, my dudes. All right. Where was I? All right, I'm just gonna say, yeah, just behind her, lying on its side, was a bear trap with a jagged slit down the middle and rusted metal hinges. It was connected to a little chain and a rusted metal post flying flat on the ground. May wondered how old the trap was and who had left it there. Thinking that it might still be dangerous, she bent over, picked it up by the chain, and tossed it in the lake. It landed with a splash, sending out tiny black waves. She felt suddenly like she shouldn't have done that. She looked around, checking the woods. Up above, the clouds started to drift away, as if startled. May swallowed. She looked around again. There was no sign of a house or a farm. No lady. Summer Kitty moaned, pacing back and forth toward the edge of the woods, as if he wanted May to follow him home. It's just water, Kitty. May went up to the wet tip of the lake, leaned over the edge to look in her. Jesus, I don't know what the heck is wrong with my throat. Yeah, May walked up to the wet tip of the lake and leaned over the edge to look at her own reflection. There she was, short, flat bangs, parted to the sides, her black top and overalls, her knobby arms and legs, and there was something else. A tiny shimmering light. Standing up straight again, May looked at the sky. There was the sun, up behind the filmy clouds that were darting away. She looked down at the water, then up again. But the sun's reflection was in a whole other place entirely. This light almost looked like it was in the water. May leaned a bit farther, squinting. The light moved, quick like a fish. May sucked in her breath. She knew she'd lost her balance the moment it happened. She swung her arms out at her sides to right herself, but it was too late. She toppled forward and hit the water with a splash. May's arms flayed out in front of her, and for a moment she stayed motionless, feeling the cold sting of the air and swallowing a mouthful of it before she started flapping her limbs. She paddled up and took 2 strokes toward the edge of the lake, breathing the surface and reaching for the shore. And then she felt it. It felt like a set of very strong fingers grasping her ankle. They rested there for a moment, tightening, and then yank. Aw shit, boys, it's getting good. Sorry, just gotta position myself again for a comfortable reading position. May went under. She stooped out her arms and flapped them wildly, much harder than ever before. Feeling the fingers around her ankle, with all the energy she had, she yanked both knees forward, and the hand went slipping off with a jerk. May lunged for the shore again, Summer Kitty's high-pitched panic meow ringing in her ears. She felt just the slightest brush against her calves as she pulled herself up onto the dirt, and whatever it was slipped off again, giving May a chance to scramble up onto dry, panting. Giving May a chance to scramble up onto dry land, panting and heaving. She turned to face the water and crawled backward, just as Summer Kitty jumped in front of her like a lion defending his pride. May reached, grabbed him, and yanked him back to her chest. They both watched the water. They they both watched the water, waiting for whatever it was to surface. It didn't. May stood up and started to back away slowly, carefully. If she had been paying attention to anything but the pounding of her heart, she would have noticed that every creature in that part of the woods had gone quiet. She didn't look up to see that even the filmy white clouds were gone completely. At the top of the rise, she turned her back onto the lake and started to run. Mrs. Bird was on the phone in the kitchen when May, soaked and sore, her legs nicked in several places from the briars, snuck in through the back door and up the back staircase toward her room. The staircase ran up behind the kitchen, and above her own heavy breathing, she could hear her mom's muffled voice. We're not sure yet, Sister Christina, but we're seriously thinking about it. Yes. Latin? Really? And French? I'm not sure May wants to speak French. Well, she is into art class at her school. Oh, I see. Well, I think she'd miss it. Well, that's true. To give you more feedback, or not feedback, uh, background, her mom's thinking of sending her to a Catholic boarding school, and May doesn't really want that. Anyways, May tiptoed up to her room and changed out of her wet clothes and into her softest silk pajamas and wrapped herself into the covers and of her bed like a larva, shivering. Somber Kitty leaped up behind her, patting the crown of her head with his paw until she opened the top of the covers and let him come in too. He snuggled up against her and licked her wet cheeks several times. They stayed like that for more than an hour. um, Sorry, got a sudden case of the sleepy. Also, drinking my hot chocolate. um, Finally, her mother appeared at the door. Honey, she said, I didn't hear you come in. Are you feeling okay? May stayed covered, biting her lip. Mrs. Bird came and sat on the edge of the bed. I was just about to make dinner. Somber Kitty's head perked its way out of the covers at the word dinner. May slowly perked her head out too. Did you take a bath? May remembered her wet hair. Yes. Honey, what is it? Mrs. Bird said, leaning forward with concern at the sight of May's face. May sat up and scurried into her mom's arms, hugging her tight. There's something bad in the woods, she whispered. Mrs. Bird's grip tightened, and she pushed May into an arm's length so she could look into her eyes. Did you see someone in the woods? May looked at her and shook her head. No, I didn't see it. May took a deep breath. It's in the lake. The lake? The warm, worried look on Mrs. Bird's face slid away to make room for a suspicious one. May snapped her mouth shut. She knew she'd made a mistake. There wasn't a lake anywhere she was allowed to go to. May plucked at the threads of her quilt, and her mom rubbed her forehead with one hand. Mrs. Bird sounded tired when she spoke again. May, did you see someone in the woods? No, it was just a monster. What could May say? Her mom looked too broken-hearted to hear a story she couldn't believe. May looked at her desk, then traced her favorite quilted flower with her pointer finger. May, why do you make things so hard? I don't understand. May didn't reply. She pulled her lips together tight and tucked her chin. I just can't help but think. In boarding school, with all those other girls, you'd... Mrs. Bird eyed her for another second, and then felt her forehead. You're warm. I'll get you some aspirin, and you're grounded from going to the woods. May smiled weakly to show she understood, but she knew it came out as a grimace. It didn't matter anyway. Her mom was already moving into the hallway. May burrowed back under the covers. The fear was still crouched under her ribs, but after the talk of St. Agatha's, she wasn't sure the thing in the lake was the only thing making the fear burn. And though she thought it would never let her get to sleep, she fell into slumber. No, she does not. Oh my God, Chandler. She doesn't know. No, she does not. No. And I could be wrong because I forget the last book. But I don't think so, no. No. Anyway, that theory is also rejected. And though she thought it would never let her get to sleep, she fell into slumber, much like a rock sinking into deep water. Somber Kitty, a spider, and a ladybug were sitting beside the stone path in the backyard just after midnight, listening to the crickets catching flies drawn by the birds' porch lights, and nibbling on a blade of grass. That in that order, when a figure emerged from the edge of the woods. All three creatures stopped what they were doing to stare as the figure moved forward, drifting along the stone path that led up to the back entrance of White Moss Manor. As it floated through the door, Somber Kitty merely gazed at it lazily. He was used to the creatures that drifted around the house at night. Watching the figure disappear up the back stairway, he merely lifted a lazy paw and licked between the soft pink paw pads. They tasted like summer grass, his favorite. And there we are, almost an hour later, and we are done with chapter fucking 3. God damn. Still gonna keep reading. I think I'm gonna stop at 10:30. 10:30 I'm gonna stop and then, hang out, chill, that sort of thing. That's usually what we do. People will usually sign off or whatever if they want to talk or whatever, It doesn't matter. Usually after like a while of me not reading, it's usually just me and my boyfriend, and usually I fall asleep pretty fast. He can confirm that. Yeah, let me take a swig of almost instantly. Yeah. Yep, it's what I do best. Okay, cool. Anyways, chapter 4. Oh shit, I lost my place. Oh shit, do I want to read until chapter 8? Oh fuck, dude. No, I don't think I have enough time. I might have enough time. We'll see. Because there's parts in every book, so right now we're in part 1. No, wait. Is this part 1 or is this... No, I think this is part 1. Yeah, this is part 1. Okay. Chapter 4. A stranger arrives. I'm going to put a picture right here. There we go. May was in the middle of a dream. She had fallen into a great black sea. A set of long fingers was holding on to her ankles. When she yanked her legs away, the hand held out a moldy old letter with her name on it. The fingers tapped on the paper with the letter. Tap, tap, tap. Tap, tap, tap. Tap, tap, tap. Hours after she had fallen asleep, May sat straight up in bed. She pushed her palms down on the bed to make sure she was really there and not still dreaming. Thank goodness. She breathed deeply and looked around her room, noticing her familiar objects in the shadows. Her mom had never come to her with aspirin. Her mom had never come to her with the aspirin. Or had She climbed out of her bed and dug her balled up wet shorts out of the closet, prying her waterlogged letter out of the pocket. She walked to the window and held it up by the light of the moon. Tap, tap, tap. May froze. The noise had come from just outside her door. May looked out her window to check the moon. It was high in the dark sky. That meant it was midnight, or a little later. She laid her letter on the windowsill, trying not to creak as she crossed the floor to her door. She paused at the threshold for a moment to listen. The sound outside the door was very gentle, like a twig. Hold on, sorry. I was not paying attention at all. May looked out her window to check the moon. It was high in the dark sky. That meant it was midnight or a little later. She laid her letter on the windowsill, trying not to creak as she crossed the floor to her door. She paused at the threshold for a moment to listen. The sound outside the door was very gentle, like a twig beating against a window, or fingernails. She reached out and grasped the handle, opened it, and looked. There was nothing but the dark. Tap, tap, tap. The sound started again, but now it was further away, up ahead of her in the darkness. May tiptoed toward it, pausing halfway at the top of the black stairs to look down toward the second floor. Nothing. She continued onto her mother's bedroom door. The sound had stopped. She listened hard to the chirping of crickets and the dry leaves rubbing against one another outside, and tapping again behind her. May swallowed. Her chest began to flicker hotly. She turned slowly and quietly. The sound was not coming from her room at the end of the hall. The sound was now coming from her room at the end of the hall. And there was something else from there, too. A pale blue glow, like someone had left a television on. There wasn't a television in all of White Moss Manor. May's limbs zinged. Hello? May whispered. I know that wasn't a whisper, but I want to make sure um, both the recording and you guys can hear. So try to be as accurate as possible, but if I can't, then I can't. Um, Hello? May whispered, her breath barely coming out. Mom? The tapping stopped for a moment, then started again. Hello? She whispered, but very low this time. She looked back at her mom's door, torn. Her mom had looked so tired. The last thing May wanted to do was wake her, especially for something that was probably nothing. May tried to think like her mom would. It was nothing. It was her imagination getting away. The light was probably coming from the moon. Quietly, May plodded down the hallway. She stopped just short of her door. Her breath, which had been on its way to her mouth, changed its mind and froze in her throat. There, sitting on her bed, with its back to her, was a figure, stretched out to one side, its long, white fingers drummed against the windowsill, while the other hand seemed to be tucked up in front of it, as if it was supporting its chin. Its body was long and skinny, covered by a long, ragged shirt and a pair of ripped pants, and its head, from what May could see of it, was enormous and round like a pumpkin, with a tuft of hair up top. Where was I? Though the figure's body, through the figure's body, the round orb of the moon and the trees below were completely visible. He was like a piece of light. May couldn't move. She couldn't breathe. She opened her mouth to scream, but only a squeak came out. At the noise, the creature perked its head to the left and then swiveled to look at her. The thing was nothing close to human. Its mouth was a giant, jagged gash. No nose, 2 holes in powder white skin. Its eyes were long and droopy, the sockets hanging around horrible black eye. The sockets hanging around. Let me just reread that sentence. Its eyes were long and droopy, the sockets hanging around horrible black eyeballs. Looking at May, they widened in surprise and then squinted in concentration. Finally, the mouth split open and stretched from cheek to cheek in a wicked smile, revealing crooked, broken teeth. May's voice finally found its way to her lips. She screamed, Mom! The smile on the creature in front of her descended into a deep, horrible frown. It shot up from the bed, rushing toward her. At the same moment, the sound of footsteps hitting wood echoed at the end of the hall. May jumped back and flattened herself. Against the wall, still screaming. The creature sailed through the doorway, its face a mask of ugliness. May threw her arms up in front of her, but instead of lunging for her, it sailed right past her, disappearing around the corner and down the stairs, just as Mrs. Bird's door flew open. May, what is it? Mrs. Bird cried, running to her daughter and grabbing her shoulders. Shh, shh. For several agonizing seconds, May couldn't catch her breath to say anything. She flung her arm in the direction of the stairs, and the word finally came out. Ghost! Mrs. Bird frowned. Ghost? A ghost? May nodded, thrusting her hand toward the stairs again and panting. He went down there. Fucking spooky one at that. um. All right. Um. Where was I? Okay. Mrs. Bird looked at her for another moment, then walked into the stairway and disappeared. She was gone long enough for May to worry she'd went. She was gone long enough for May to worry she'd sent her to her doom. But to her relief, she reappeared a few minutes later. May was standing against the wall, nibbling hard on her fingers. Did you see it? May asked, looking over her mother's shoulders. Mrs. Bird shook her head, her eyes heavily lidded, her mouth set in a droopy, tired line. She sighed. No, honey, there's nothing down there. Come on. Putting one hand on May's back, she ushered her down the hall and into her bedroom. But Mom, it was there. I swear. A few taps on the stairs and in the hallway, and Somber Kitty appeared, rubbing against May's shins. It was just a dream, baby. But Mom... This is such Stranger Things shit. You bet it is. But Mom... Come on, hop in. Mrs. Bird had pulled down the top of the covers into a triangle and rubbed the sheets to indicate where May should hop. May stared at her, disbelieving. Hop in. But Mrs. Bird sighed, running a hand through her soft, fuzzy brown hair. Please, honey, I'm tired. May stared for a second longer, then crawled up under her mom's arms into the space provided. But Mom, honey, I promise you, it was just a dream. Can I sleep with you? Mrs. Bird shook her head. May, you're 10 years old. May tugged at her nails, frustrated. She and Summer Kitty exchanged looks. Summer Kitty let out a long sigh, and then hopped off the bed and pranced back into the hallway, its footsteps sounding on the stairs, and then May heard the swing of the cat door to the front. Mom? May searched the space behind her mom in the hallway with her eyes. Sorry, I just had a brain fart and I was just like, wait, what? I had to quickly skim through through that again. Mom? May searched the space in front of her mother in the hallway with her eyes. Mrs. Bird turned, tugging at the hem of her pink nightshirt drowsily. Will you look out the window? What if it's in the yard? Mrs. Bird frowned, then knelt on the bed and looked outside. She turned to May. Nothing. Okay, will you check the back too? Mrs. Bird nodded wearily and made her way to the door. After her mom had gone, May sat on her bed, her arms wrapped around her knees, eyeing the corners of her room. Finally, once she got the courage to move, she sidled up to her window. May leaned forward and gazed out onto the lawn. There was Summer Kitty, out on the stone walkway, playing with his tail, and there, in the glow of the moon, standing on the grass, with a bush behind him, visible through his skinny, see-through legs, was the horrible creature with the pumpkin head, watching her. Meeting her eyes, he quickly turned, floating across the oh my god, Jesus. Meeting her eyes, he quickly turned, floating across the Why do I want to keep on saying glass? It's not the glass, it's the grass. I am getting so tongue-tied right now. My god. Meeting her eyes, he quickly turned, floating across the grass and into the woods. That's the end of this chapter. God damn. It would be pretty spooky. Alright, let me see how long this one is. It's not that long. I don't think I'll be able to make it in for us to make it to part 2, which is okay. Yeah, that's fine. Alright. Chapter 5. What lives in the lake? Summer Kitty was right outside May's door that morning when she crawled out of bed. He looked at her gleefully, doing some arabesque. Arabesque? I want to make sure I'm pronouncing this right. I think I am, but I want to make sure. No, am I even spelling it right? Let's see. I don't think I'm spelling it right. Arabesque. Okay. Arabesque. Let me see. Arabesque. Oh, okay. There we go. All right. Summer Kitty was right outside May's door that morning when she crawled out of bed. He looked at her gleefully, doing a little arabesque. Some guard cat you are, May muttered. Meow. The two made their way downstairs, one staggering, the other trotting, to the breakfast table. May slumped over her oatmeal, watching her mom putter around the kitchen. Occasionally, Mrs. Bird watched her in return, the two doe-eyeing each other thoughtfully, but neither of them said anything. I'm going outside, May finally muttered. Remember, no woods, Mrs. Bird said, wiping the counter. May walked down the hall and outside, looked around to make sure there was no one standing in the grass, and planted herself on the stairs. She had been up most of the night, hiding under the covers and watching her door, knowing that at any moment the ghost would come through it. He hadn't. At dawn, she dared to look outside her window again, but he hadn't come back. She sat for several minutes, restless, eyeing the line of trees across the lawn. Then she got up and went down onto the grass. Now, walking under the sun to the edge of the woods, she felt a dark splotch moving across the moving across the ground. At the edge of the trees, she paused. Something fuzzy knocked into her calves, making her jump. Kitty, you scared me! She crouched and picked him up, his body stretching out underneath him. Uh, his body stretching out underneath him like a piece of chewed gum. Together, they Together they stared into the darkness beneath the trees. May searched the branches above, as if the creature from last night would actually appear up there, swinging by his knees. What lives in the lake? She asked Summer Kitty. Meow. Do you think it's a ghost? Meow. Do you think it's coming after me? She whispered low. Meow. She didn't know whether that was a yes or a no. She took it as a maybe and hurried back into the house. That afternoon, May sank down at her desk, moved her materializer to the floor, and wrote down notes from the Ghost Hunter's Guide to the Paranormal, which she had found in the crooked shelved recesses of White Moss Manor's dusty library that afternoon. As she wrote, she leaned her head on her free hand and let out the occasional yawn. Her notes read, Come after dark, scared of iron, obsidian, silver, periwinkle, horseshoes, spitting salt. When no one is around, the temperature drops. Upon copying this last line, May stood up and made a beeline down to the thermometer that hung outside the back door, then carried it back to her room and took it to the wall next to her bed. A few seconds later, she came back to reading again, and her eyelids were getting heavy. She began to droop farther and farther down onto her desk, her elbows sliding, and her head finally resting on her hands. Summer Kitty, who'd curled up on the floor by her chair, listened to the steady noise of her breathing and watched the sun droop outside the window, below the horizon, until darkness slowly crept up from the trees. May only stirred once to turn her head to the side, and then she jerked up, suddenly awake. There, on the wall in front of her, among the many imaginary creatures May had drawn over the years, was the one she had done when she was only 3 or 4. The creature The creature, the creature in the drawing had a round, lopsided head, like a pumpkin that had grown on its side, and a gash of a mouth. He was wearing a long, ripped shirt, a jacket, and a pair of trousers rolled up at the bottom. A tuft of yellow hair sprang from the top of his head. May sat, her mouth hanging open for several minutes. There was no mistaking him. It wasn't possible. As she tried to make sense of it, May's eyes drifted to her letter on the windowsill. She stood up and grabbed it, pulled it out of the envelope. Amazingly, it was still legible, even though more blurred than ever. She read bits of it. The danger you will endure, and then, great need of your help. She looked at the envelope and sighed itself. She looked at the envelope itself inside. Let me say that again because I don't feel like I said that right. She looked at the envelope itself and sighed. The tree and the woman's face hidden in the leaves was gone. Maybe, May stuck her thumbnail between her teeth. Meow, Summer Kitty inquired. Shh, May hissed, concentrating. One question after another started racing through her head. Was the creature in her room the danger she had to endure? Was the creature from the lake? Were they the same? What did it have to do with this lady? May looked out the window, pressing her nose against the glass. She could only see the shadow of the trees. She felt like a prisoner. Are you out there? She thought, trying to picture the lady from her letter. She squinted, trying to see her eyes in the trees. Do you need me? It was hard to imagine. May knew she wasn't much good for anything, not much that was useful. Wasn't that why her mom thought she needed St. Agatha's? A few minutes later, a chill slid across her and roused her from her thoughts. Honey, why don't you take a bath? Her mom called from downstairs. May sat on her bed and peeled off her black shorts and black slippers, not noticing that the mercury and the thermometer by her bed had dropped. She walked into the bedroom. She walked into the bathroom, smoothing her bangs away from her forehead and turning on the spigot. She had just turned to close the door when the bath water splashed behind her. Her hair stood up on the back of her neck. She turned. A woman with dark black hair and pale white skin and hollow, dark circled eyes sat in the bathtub. She was completely translucent, and she was wearing a shower cap. May felt a scream rise up in her throat, but clamped down on it hard. Slowly, pretending she didn't notice, she backed out through the bathroom door and tiptoed to her mom's room, where she found Mrs. Bird sitting in front of her computer. She stopped at the edge of the room, squeaked to a halt, and trembled. Her mom looked up. What's wrong? May's breath fluttered in her mouth. Visions of St. Agatha's suddenly danced in her head. She looked back over her shoulder, toward the bottom of the stairs. May? May hesitated. She didn't move. Can you come, check the, what could she say? I think I saw a spider in the bathroom. Mrs. Bird eyed her quizzically. A spider? May, can't you squish it? I don't squish spiders. She paused and then whispered, I think it's a tarantula. Oh, May. Mrs. Bird looked longingly at her laptop, then slowly stood up. The old floors creaking as she walked. Mrs. Bird led the way down the hall. They passed the stairs. Somber Kitty was sitting about halfway down, looking at the banister, clearly wondering if he should jump onto it and slide, which he sometimes liked to do. As Mrs. Bird turned the corner into the bathroom, she waited for her to shriek or leap backward, but none of that happened. When May turned the corner, her mom was just pulling back from the bath, where the woman still sat. Oh, fuck. Oh, I got a little pain, like, in the back, in, like, my lower back. It's like a nerve pain or whatever. Oh, that was unexpected and not nice. Oh, okay. It's good now. Okay. Where was I? When May turned the corner, her mom was just pulling back from the bath, where the woman still sat. The water's spider free. The water's spider free, May. It's fine. She bent down to turn off the spigot. The woman in the tub looked at May, her big, dark eyes mournful and horrible. She looked at May. May looked from her back to her mom and back to the woman. Somber Kitty entered the room and leaped up onto the sink, trying to catch the drips from the tap. Both her mother and the cat were relaxed and carefree. May was on her own. And that was the end of that chapter. Okay, I think I have time to read one more. She sees dead people. Okay, bear with me. I'm pretty close to being actually done with part 1. I'm on chapter 40. I'm on chapter 48. I'm on page 48. And I'll only have 11 more pages to go. I think I'm gonna keep on reading. And I think it's only gonna take me like 20 more minutes. I'll say 30 more minutes just to, but yeah. So I want to get done with chapter 1 because I want you guys to be on edge because I won't be reading until probably Monday. No, not Monday. Probably Sunday because I remember I have the Christmas party and I won't be coming to your house, babe. So, and then Monday I will be going to your house. So probably not until Tuesday. So maybe, yeah. I'm just like thinking ahead. I like to think ahead. Okay, anyways. Chapter 6. My hot chocolate is so good. Even though it's not hot anymore, it's cold chocolate, but my cold chocolate is very good. Okay, chapter 6. The Hauntings. It looked like life at White Moss Manor would never be normal again. It was not so much that the house seemed to be flooded with ghosts, as much as it seemed that ghosts had been in the house the whole time, and May simply hadn't seen them. This impression was created because, from that day forward, whenever she saw a ghost, it appeared to be right at home. The night after the ghost in the bathtub, May came face to face with a woman dangling by a rope from the rafters of the back stairway. Her neck tilted at a horrible angle. May threw both hands over her mouth and sprinted down the stairs, hiding under the bed in Bertha Bretwaller's old guest room. When she investigated an hour later, the woman was gone. In the kitchen for a late-night snack that night she hadn't eaten all day, May found 6 men in football uniforms sitting at the table, moving their mouths but making no sound. May's mom sat in one of the seats not occupied by a ghost, working on her laptop. Only Somber Kitty looked at the men from time to time as he lapped at his water dish. When does Bruce Willis show up? Unfortunately, he will not be showing up. I'm sorry. I know. It's just truly disappointing. It's okay though. The next evening, Mrs. Bird found May hiding behind the couch in the dusty, rarely used second parlor, where she'd just seen a pair of small, glowing children with missing hands, playing hide and seek. When Mrs. Bird questioned her, May said she'd been catching dust bunnies. Strangely, the creature with the round, lopsided head was the only one who appeared more than once. While the others never showed up a second night in a row, he returned night after night, appearing in the strangest of places at the most unexpected times. May opened her closet to get her pajamas, and there he was, dangling from the clothes hanger, a wicked smile plastered across his face. May walked down to the study to grab a book, and he was lying on the chase lounge, one hand lazily draped behind his head while he looked out the window at the fireflies that had come out to light up the backyard like dancing stars. She sat at her desk, and she would find him in her doorway, watching her, and she'd crawl under her bed until he went away. For 5 nights in a row, May stayed up each night, most of the night, with her eyes on her bedroom door for ghostly intruders. And every morning, just before dawn, she watched. She watched through her bedroom window as the ghosts trickled down the front walkway and into the woods in what seemed to be the direction of the lake. It was only when the last ghost disappeared into the trees that she ever fell asleep. The dark circles formed under May's and her mother's eyes. Not the dark circles, just dark circles formed under May's and her mother's eyes. Though May tried her best to hide the situation, it would have been hard for anyone not to notice her spitting and throwing salt wherever she did. She started wearing every piece of silver she could find. She tied a 4-piece set of silverware around her waist like a skirt and pinned the onyx brooch from her shelf onto her skirt. She collected all the food she could fit in her arms, filled her favorite canteen with water, and built a teepee in the most protected corner of her room. It was filled with her small collection of silver dollars, a dried periwinkle from one of her mother's wreaths. She posted a "no trespassing" sign on the entrance. It became her nightly hiding place, where she curled against the back wall and watched for ghosts. But life at the manor had changed in another way, too. A host of papers, catalogs, and brochures had begun pouring from St. Agatha's, landing on the kitchen table in a heap as they tumbled out of Mrs. Bird's arms. While May stayed as far away from them as possible, Mrs. Bird pored over them in earnest, clutching her tea mug in one hand and turning the page with the other. "May, they even have seminars on making good first impressions. Isn't that great? Wouldn't you like to make good first impressions?" May had become afraid of going outside, so at times like these, May avoided her mom by drifting from room to room of the manor, the 2 parlors, the library, the 5 unused bedrooms, and the attic, which had the highest window in the house. She didn't know what she was looking for, but it seemed that if she looked hard enough, she'd find a way to save herself from St. Agatha's. She pressed her forehead to the window pane, stared She pressed her forehead to the window pane, staring towards the woods. Summer Kitty, tripping along at her heels until he'd get bored and zip away. She'd wondered about the lady of North Farm, the way her mom looked at her like she'd grown a second head, made it seem very important that somewhere somebody said they needed her. Even if that seemed impossible, it was enticing to think that someone thought she was good enough to be needed. It made her long to see the lake again, a feeling so strange. It made May feel like she had known. It made May feel like she had grown three heads. Hold on just for a second. Um, about half an hour after midnight, she was huddled in her teepee, reading the Encyclopedia of the Supernatural while cuddling Somber Kitty under one arm. She was just turning the page when she heard her door creak open. She froze, not even daring to turn her head. Um, um, a shadow approached the teepee, looming large against the walls, and May felt her body going cold. A shadow, a shadow hand reached out and closed around the blanket. May couldn't hold it back. She screamed and rolled sideways, knocking the teepee over. It fell around her as she howled, getting more and more tangled in the blankets. A moment later, hands yanked the blanket off. It was her mother, her brown eyes wide. There was no sign of a ghost anywhere. "We're packing your things first thing in the morning," Mrs. Bird said stiffly. "We'll stay at a hotel and make plans for New York." She paused, shook her head, and rubbed her eyelids. "I can't do this anymore, May." May sank onto her back, tears crawling out of the sides of her eyes and winding down her cheeks. Her mom merely tightened her lips and left the room. It was a half hour or more before May wiped her eyes, stood up, and tiptoed into the hallway. Her mother's was her mother's door at the end of the hall was closed, and the light was out. Letting a ragged sigh, May crept up the stairs to the attic, keeping an eye out for ghosts. May looked out the east window, pressing her face against it and getting new tears on the glass. The woods stared back at her, like an old friend. New York City seemed like a million miles away. It seemed like the moon. "You..." Even Summer Kitty seemed to know he should whisper. May picked him up and held him tight. They both peered. Hold on. Okay. I just need to readjust myself. Even Somber Kitty seemed to know he should whisper. May picked him up and held him tight. They both peered into the night. What do we do?" she murmured, touching cheek to whiskers. Just faintly, she could see a blue glow beyond the trees, flickering. "Meow," Somber Kitty replied, which meant, "I don't know. I'm not feeling very brave." May sighed quietly. Then she put her cat on the floor and tiptoed down into her room to sleep. At the floor of May's bed, Somber Kitty slept soundly, curled in a cheese doodle shape, or ches. I think it's cheese doodle. Yeah. At the foot of May's bed, Somber Kitty slept soundly, curled in a cheese doodle shape, dreaming of a field full of moths to catch. His paws twitched contentedly, swiping at this and that fluttering insect, putting them in his mouth to chew on. May, on the other hand, lay in her favorite black silky pajama top, and her eyes wide open, staring at the dragonfly wind chimes above her bed. She flopped back and forth on the bed, her legs splaying one way and her arms another. The sweat gathering at the backs of her knees and the crease above her lips. In her hand, she clutched the letter. Quietly, so she wouldn't wake the cat, May rose. She went to her drawer and pulled out her black sparkly bathing suit. If she was going to face what was in the lake, she was going like a warrior. Warrior. Once she was dressed, May reached up to her shelf and plucked a quartz rock from the group, slipping it into her pocket for luck. She grabbed a flashlight from its hook beside her binoculars. She grabbed all of her ghost supplies, her silver and onyx and salt. Finally, she tucked her mysterious letter into her pocket. Outside, the stars were shining in full force. May stopped on the lawn and looked at her house. In the light of the moon, it seemed to glow. Its crooked lines and sinking roof and the additions tacked on at every single angle showed up extra bright. She had the sick, belly aching feeling she'd never see it again. Don't be silly, she said under her breath. She turned and continued across the grass. She turned and continued across the grass. The trees were black slashes standing up from the ground until May was standing close to them at the edge of the woods. Peering in, she could see the occasional lightning bug up past bedtime, looking for a mate. Before she stepped into the line of trees, she took one last look toward home and sucked in a breath. And that is the end of chapter 5? No, 6. 6. That was the end of chapter 6. All right. Now, cool. Almost done. 5 more pages to go. All right, chapter 7. Also, I appreciate you too, babe, but also I really appreciate you, Venom, for staying as long as you did. I'm pretty sure you're doing other stuff, so you're not, totally, immersed, but still, thank you. Because also, whenever hey, nice. I don't know, I feel like I wouldn't want you to miss out on this, even though, you missed out on, the first session, but I wouldn't want you to miss out on this. I don't know. It's weird. But I appreciate my listeners, so thank you. All right. So, chapter 7. Zoop. Chapter 7. Light underwater. The lake has a glossy black hole, completely still. May stood at the edge of the clearing, shining her flashlight on its surface, then on the surrounding area, looking for signs of movement. Navigating the briars had been easier to not. May stood just at the edge of the clearing, shining her flashlight on its surface, then on the surrounding area, looking for signs of movement. Navigating the briars had been easier tonight, knowing what was at the end of them, but her legs still itched from where she pricked herself. She bent down and rubbed at her calves gently. Suddenly, there was a rustle in the bushes behind her, and she swiveled around, pointing her light at a group of shrubs that shook back and forth. A small figure emerged from behind them. Hold on, I need to do something real quick. I feel my lips are a little dry, so I need to find my chapstick, which is like down in like the reaches of my bag. Okay, back at it again. A small figure emerged from behind them. Kitty! Somber Kitty waddled up to her and rubbed against her shins. May lifted him. Oh God. May lifted him up, walked him to the bushes, and dropped him in. She pointed over his head, and he followed the line of her finger with his eyes. Go home. Home. Meow. Don't play dumb with me. She stomped her foot. You're gonna get hurt. Home. But Somber Kitty didn't budge. Fine, she said, but you stay there. May turned and started toward the lake. Ouch! She leaped into the air, grabbing one onto her foot with one hand and jumping up and down. Her flashlight went tumbling. Kitty! Hold on. Ugh. Need to stretch my legs too. She sank onto the ground and stared at her foot, disbelieving. 2 twin lines of blood dripped down from the back of her heel. What'd you do that for? Somber Kitty sat down beside her and meowed pitifully, but he also tilted his chin up in the air defiantly. Meow! Meow! Go home! May yelled. She leaped to her feet and took a few running steps to the cat, sending him scuttling backward, but he turned around at the bushes and started to creep back toward her. Meow! Leave me alone, Somber Kitty! Go home! She waved both arms at him as if she meant to hit him. Finally, he went zipping back into the briars, disappearing down the path. May crossed her arms and... Hold on. I just need to see something real quick for a second. Nope. Okay. Alright. Sorry about that. I just thought I heard my dog outside my door, which is weird, but he was not outside my door, so not weird. Okay. Anyway, finally he went zipping down into the briars, disappearing down the path. May crossed her arms and waited for him to come back, her foot aching. Nothing. Go home! She hollered again, but it didn't seem to be any use. Somber Kitty had gone. Kitty? May chewed on her thumbnail. She hoped he would find his way home okay. She picked up her flashlight where it had landed to look for her. She picked up her flashlight from where it had landed, to look for her ghost items, which she dropped in the fray. But just when she did, the light died. May shook it furiously a few times. No, she moaned, her heart drumming. How would she ever find her way back home? She turned and looked back toward the lake. Now in the dark and with Somber Kitty gone, she felt very alone. She had to try to catch up with him, but now when she turned to face home, she could see a very dim glow coming toward her through the woods. She backed toward the lake, panting, until she was just on the edge of the water. Wait, what? Let me read that again. She turned and looked back toward the lake. Now in the dark and with Somber Kitty gone, she felt very alone. She had to try to catch up with him, but now when she faced home, she could see a very dim glow coming toward her through the woods. She backed toward the lake, panting until she was just on the edge of the water. Her heels touched the liquid coolness. Click. May turned. With a sound like a giant light switch being turned on, the lake had completely glow. The lake had come completely aglow. Mesmerized, May took a few steps sideways, then stood at the edge of the water, looking down. She forgot about what might be behind her. Looking down was like watching a giant television. Way down in the water, someone or something was swimming. The figure got larger and larger, as if it was coming from somewhere very deep toward the surface. Something in May told her she should get away, but her feet stayed rooted to the spot. The figure looked to be a woman, now that she was closer, a beautiful woman with hair down to her toes that swirled in all directions as she stroked upward. She flipped and twisted as gracefully as a water dancer. When she was only a few feet away, her eyes met May's and she smiled. The woman came right up to the surface of the water, resting just below it. She beamed at May for a moment more, the most gorgeous vision May had ever seen. May herself had never felt so beautiful, or so lit up, or so happy. The woman's smile seemed to say, I see you, I understand you, I know you. And then her body began to widen and grow. As May watched, dazzled, it stretched into 8 glowing points. Her eyes still locked on May's. The woman's smile widened, not revealing not teeth, but fangs. A hot arrow of fear shot down May's back. She started to pull away, but not before one arm shot out of the water, grabbed her by the leg, and yanked her in. As she was dragged farther and farther downward, May's lungs felt like they were going to burst. She could still feel the woman's hands around her legs, but she couldn't see her shape anymore. She was just a glow as bright as the sun, pulling her down, 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 down farther than May thought any leg could go. It felt like she was being pulled to the center of the earth. Then her vision started to go black, and her lungs relaxed, and May let go of the hope of reaching the world above. She stopped struggling. Her arms floated up in surrender. The light started to fade away. And then she saw it. Another tiny glow, way above her. As it got closer, she could see it was not coming from the horrible ghost with the lopsided head. Oh wait, no. Then she saw it. Another tiny glow. Above her, way above her. As it got closer, she could see it was coming from the horrible ghost with the lopsided head. He was plunging toward her, his long, bony hands reaching out to grab her. Just as he reached her, May's vision went black. That's the end of chapter 7. Now it's just chapter 8, which is just a page long. All right. Ooh, I'm so excited. This is the last chapter before we end part 1. So, chapter 8. Cool. Chapter 8. The beginning. Way back in the woods, behind a patch of briars that stretched almost a mile wide in each direction, the only lake in Bury Swamp glowed and flashed like lightning. Around it, not a single critter could be seen. The fireflies had swarmed off. The insects, the night birds, the snakes, and the lizards had crawled or flown or scurried to other safer parts. The only movement came from a skinny, hairless cat The only movement came from a skinny, hairless cat. He was slowly creeping out from underneath the thorn bushes. Keeping low to the ground, mewing softly and sadly, Somber Kitty squiggled himself like a snake up to the edge of the water. Meow? He asked softly in a whisper. Nothing came back from the water except for an eerie, twinkling light. Yeah, no, Somber Kitty is a hairless cat. Yeah. Nothing came back from the water except for the eerie, twinkling light. Somber Kitty gingerly touched one paw to the water, then snatched it back, shaking off its wetness. He looked behind him, back to the path that led out of the briars. Somber Kitty appeared to be caught in an argument with himself. Finally, he tilted his chin downward stubbornly, raised his ears and tail so that they shook with warlike energy, bared his teeth, crouched, and sapping like a rubber band, Finny Elway would have shot at Claire Anderson, went splashing into the water. He came up once, paddling madly, and then he disappeared beneath the surface. Behind Somber Kitty, Bury Swamp remained silent. The lights of the lake flickered out. An owl landed on a nearby tree and let out a hoot. The critters trickled back to the sound of nibbling leaves, and the woods of the swamp all appeared to be normal. There was no one to notice what had been lost. And that, my dudes, is the end of part 1. And thank you for listening. Bye-bye.